On this episode of Chit Chalk Chat, Charles Pang reacts to Charles Payne's reaction to the developments in the Biden economic crisis, as said by our good friend Sean Hannity. Which, again, thank you, Sean, for the shout out. Either way, stay tuned.
Warning signs for the Biden economy tonight. For example, new data this week shows a massive decline in new home sales in June. We've been telling.
All right, so here is the first headline. Breaking news, I guess, is the first eye-popping thing that I see here. But home purchase activity nears pandemic levels. So it's a pandemic if homes aren't being purchased. Like, the rhetoric, okay? Just, there's a lot of talk about rhetoric across the media right now, even in everybody's statements in Congress, Elizabeth Warren, just, it's all about the language we're speaking and then the language we receive back from the interpretation of who we're speaking to. And when I say who we're speaking to, I mean like everybody, you, me, Sean, when we are speaking to somebody in a particular language, then it's only respectful and common knowledge that they are to interpret it as they receive it, as they hear it, as they experience it. And this is where rhetoric is very important, because the rhetoric, again, that this team, this Fox, when he says, we've been telling you this, it's like, I haven't heard him talking about this in the past couple months. But it says right here, Fox Business. So again, another Fox side niche, Fox Business. So now we got Fox telling us about business, and then Fox telling us about politics, and then Fox. I mean, I watch Fox during the day when, like, you know, King of the Hill is on and The Simpsons, and that's pretty much it. And, you know, it's that Fox, this Fox, there is a rhetoric, a language that has a specific flavor that speaks to a specific course of people, I guess I would say. So let's just keep that word in mind, rhetoric, like it was Pee Wee Herman's, like, so that might be a little too old for some of you, perhaps not, but let's continue.
Mortgage applications last week reportedly now declined for the fourth consecutive week to the lowest levels since the year 2000. It comes as nearly half of Americans are now falling deeper into debt as hardworking, poor, middle-class families, people on fixed incomes are all suffering under rising costs.
So people on fixed incomes are all suffering over rising costs, which is, again, common sense. But when I hear fixed income, I know that this term means that it's like a salary paycheck, you know, only it's something you get for, you know, Social Security, disability, I guess, you know, just all the programs, that pensions and you know, this is a fixed income. When you retire, you rely on these things. Like, I know every month from my 401k or from my pension, I get X amount of dollars. Now, that amount will not increase, decrease, that will always be consistent until it runs out. But as times change, hey, if the economy or whatever it is, the creates these cheap prices. If that's the time that you're in with this fixed income, then that income will stretch a lot further. But then all of a sudden, if it turns from day into night, and then at nighttime or during this dark period of whatever we're going to call it, recession, depression, just a transition, all of a sudden it doesn't stretch as far as it did. So this is where it's like Genesis, on the first day you create the heaven and the earth. And then something's void, and then you just go from here. But by the seventh day, God rests. And why does God rest? Because, hey, there's gotta be a period where, like if there just wasn't God around, I imagine that would be a very dark period. So I interpret that literature, that scripture, when I hear it, as just kind of like a planning preparation in a sense. So, if you're on a fixed income, this is where you got to get crafty and be like, what can I eliminate? Do I need, like this is, like I said, you got to just think on your feet and just say, I don't need 4-ply toilet paper. Maybe I can go 2-ply. I go on 1-ply. Like I go on like commercial janitorial like products and stuff like that. So I can't really, unless I go no toilet paper, there's no further I can go down. I really just cut out a lot of stuff because I know, I'm a smoker, so I gotta apparently I like smoking as opposed to whatever it is I cut out of the budget to be able to cover that cost, because cigarettes go up and down all the time. Now they're $11. Some places they're like $9. So I got to get on my feet and go shop around at places, liquor stores, gas stations. So this is just where it's like, oh, now it's a new game for us to kind of get involved in, rather than just the whatever. This is how I look at it. I always try to look for the good, the light that can come from this. Yes, I see the darkness. I don't feel the darkness as deeply as a lot of people do. I know that because of my creators, my parents, because they worked their butts off to provide this lifestyle for me. Like, I am so grateful to whoever, God, my parents especially, but whatever could be responsible or involved in just the coincidence that I was born to these two people who just did everything for me. I'm so grateful, and I just take that to heart and as like a responsibility. Like, I don't want to just be like another billionaire, like I want to be the person who took what all my parents gave me and found a way to share that with as many people who are, I guess, as deserving as I was to be born to these people, to share with my family. I have no kids, I'm not married, so like everybody at this point is still family to me. And this is where I kind of look at, like, I don't know, a president who is married, like clearly they got family focused on as a priority. And if we go even deeper, probably what's best for their family, and so on and so forth. So when I hear nearly half of all Americans are falling deeper in debt as inflation continues to boost costs, it's just, my advice is start tracking what all these costs are going to and start budgeting, and then see what happens? You know, don't think about mortgages yet if you're doing this. If you're deeper in debt than I don't know, there are a lot of government programs right now, government help. Like if you are a tenant who is just still struggling with rent, getting employment. I know in my state of Colorado, there are COVID relief programs for, you know, tenants who are struggling still because of COVID issues, but even tenants who are struggling through this inflation process, go online, do some research, go do some legwork like my tenant did, and reach out to these institutions that are being set up by the current, you know, leaders that we have right now. Like, this is what's going on, but don't let this rhetoric think that there's no options for you. Like, this is where I'm just like, Sean, I need some good news. Like, just stop crapping on us. Tell me something good so I can, like, just get off this toilet you put me on, if that makes sense. So
Team Biden already lowering expectations, with one advisor saying, at least there isn't a famine.
And that's where you kind of got to find the silver lining. It's like, yeah, at least there isn't a famine. But this is the part where it kind of worries me listening to.
I think that our economy is more resilient to the types of challenges that we've faced.
That's some good news. He believes that our economy is resilient to these challenges, well, the challenges that we faced and are facing. That's good news to me.
For example, you know, with respect to food, we're a net exporter of agricultural commodities, and obviously the high prices are hitting Americans very hard, but they're in a way that is different from some places that are facing famine, for example.
Okay, so there is the comparison. Look, hey, yeah, our food costs, yeah, I was going ketchup is like a cup, 50 cents more. Just there are these little hikes that we're seeing on the food that we've been buying just regularly and stuff like that. But he just said that there are some places that are facing a famine. That's no food. So that's completely different from countries that are going to a store with empty shelves. And this is where, as Americans, we should be worried about whoever it is he's referring to facing a famine as the current challenge. Like, that is very troubling to me to hear that and hear Sean just immediately jump to,
well, just wait on that. A lot of farmers call my radio show with a 400% increase in fertilizer, and people paying double, farmers paying double for
his radio.
For example,
I get.
Well, just wait on that. A lot of farmers call my radio show with a 400% increase in fertilizer, and paying double, farmers paying double for seeds. Yeah.
Isn't fertilizer in farming like manure and stuff like that? Like, really? There's a hike on manure. I mean, I'm sure there's other fertilizer, but it's just, when I hear this, it's just farmers are calling it in saying they're increasing my fertilizer prices, my cost for seeds. It's like, this is Joe Biden and his Democratic affiliates' fault, Sean, that seeds are going up? Or are these seed distributors seeing this as like a banking moment? Like, wow, people are going to need food. And there are countries that are facing a famine. Let's increase this seed cost while we can milk it. Because I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen in this Biden economic crisis? This is how minds differ. There are minds that think compassionately, and there are minds that think for profit or just complete just currency. Like, it's just.
Guess what? Food prices are even going to go higher. Meanwhile, major corporations, McDonald's, Coke, Huggies are among the major brands that are hiking their costs.
Okay, so again, McDonald's, which if there is a food crisis, like I don't know, I don't know if you guys heard about that pink slime like story from McDonald's where just look it up, look up pink slime and just figure that story out. But the takeaway from that is that McDonald's said that when they were using this pink slime, they were able to produce all the meat for all their restaurant chains in the entire country for 1 year using 1,000 cows. Like I love big. I am on the fast food diet. Like maybe it's because of my genes or just whatever it is. But yeah, I just love fast food. And so I felt the hike when people started complaining about this slime. Like, we want real meat. It's like, oh no, Big Macs are gonna cost like, But then they made chicken nuggets $5 for 20. It's just like these things where I'm just like, how did chicken become like just so cheap? Like there are these things where, as a smoker, I'm even like, how are hundreds, the long cigarettes, the same price as the short version? Like it's just, smokers will tell me, oh, it's because they got a longer filter and, less tobacco. But it's just like, yeah, but then the longer filter's got to cut. So it's just, is that what it is? It's just because I don't know. I think about these things when I think about money. Where's this money coming? Where's it going and stuff like that? But Coca-Cola, I know that Coca-Cola owns a lot of water resources. So, again, I love soda. Like, these are things minus the Huggies. It's just, again, why is this diaper shortage happening? Is it because of the Green Deal coming down on plastic production or something like that? Like, what is causing this? Like, I don't know. Like, from the coverage I get from this, it's just Biden's fault that diapers cost more and gas costs more. And if Trump wasn't here, then all this would be fine, which is just redundant. But
all in response to Joe Biden's surging inflation, a 41-year high. Even in New York, well, if you're Joe Biden, you call him a bodega, but bodegas are now feeling the squeeze. They're now being forced to raise prices on...
And anything that is a problem in America, Hannity calls a Biden, not a bodega or bodega, a Biden.
Deli sandwiches, other popular items. In many cases now, those prices...
And this is the thing, too. Subway, all of a sudden, there's no more $5 footlongs. So now I went to Subway, and I'm just like, why is my bill $20 for these 2 subs? And they're like, oh, yeah, we don't have $5 footlongs anymore. It's just like, oh! And I had to cut the Subway out of my, like those $5 meals. Like, that's like... like Burger King's got, like the $5, I try to just really look for those. But like I said, I don't know if you guys felt that inflation, but that was a killer for me. Just no more $5 footlongs. Maybe that's because Jared used that saying a little too. Don't go there, Charles. Continue with this.
Have doubled. And get this, according to the Daily Mail, at least 2 out of every 5 Americans are now looking for second sources of income just to stay afloat. According to the New York Post, inflation is even...
This is where, this is great. Everybody should always be looking for new ways to just get some passive income. Hey, I can do some art, or I can do some work for, a neighbor. Just, there's always a side job you can make. I hate the word hustle, because hustle to me makes me interpret as just possible swindling or just something corrupt. So I always just call it a side income, just a side project that I do, that I love to do. That's, it's not, I did a lot of art Banksy reproduction for people, you know, who wanted like an actual canvas of a Banksy piece that I did. Like, I'd sell them for like $40 just to cover my cost and whatever. Like, I was amazed. I might go back into that hustle because I don't know. Art has now become a hustle. Politics has become a hustle because Donald Trump, you know, the art of the deal is just, you never apologize. You just stay firm. And that mentality is the business mentality, it seems. And that's, in my opinion, where we should start focusing on trying to fix this, which is what I think government is trying to do with the rhetoric that they're using. Like, this is not a recession. Well, you're changing the definition of a recession. No, we are perceiving the word and the situation differently. We are transitioning into a new phase that you call us cult members for. So we don't even want to tell you about it because we know how it's going to be. So listen to what we're saying. And when you hear us, we'll know, and then we'll involve you. This is how I interpret what the government is saying to all these Fox people specifically. Like, I think the government is just specifically using rhetoric to focus on what Sean and all of the Fox family are going to twist it into. It's just a big pang theory.
Impacting America's dating lives, with young singles telling the paper inflation is making them rethink what they're spending on their dates.
So, as a single man at the age of 40, this was something I was doing long before Biden, long before Trump. Like, it was just the day that I realized, like, I have done a lot of these first dates where, like, oh yeah, let's go. It's just, I gotta just start opening up with like a walk. Actually, it opened up with the coffee. You want to meet for coffee. And then when I had a budget, cigarettes went up. It's like, let's just go for a walk. And the girls I was meeting on the free dating sites, because I didn't want to pay Match.com to just find me people who would just reject me before we even like spoke. It's just like I don't want to pay for rejection. I'll go the free route, see where I find. And then I'd get a little further and I'd bring coupons as more of like a test. You know, it's just like, why would somebody a date that, you know, I'm going to be paying for, like, freak out if I broke out a coupon? And this is where I was just like, I'm going to start using this just to see if this person's really for real, like, about me, or just material. Like, so these are just games that I picked up, you know? And when I tell girls, like, I'm sorry, like, it's not going to work out. Like, you just really failed my test. And I'm a 3-strike 4-ball person before, you know, I say I walk or you gotta walk, you know, like, that's my that's just kind of how I just treat every relation or conversation. It's just, all right, that's strike one, that's a ball, you're at a full count. You know, I let them know my system. I'm like, that was a strike. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, that didn't jive with me, you know. And then again, I get dates where it's just like, what, are you like testing me? And I'm like, perhaps. And then they're like, who are you to test me? And I'm just like, what? Like, all right, you just like did a strike 2, strike 3, you're out. Right there. So it's just, again, I'm single at 40, and I'm very aware of the reasons of probably why. I don't blame Biden. I don't blame Trump.
Earlier today, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates by a whopping 75 basis points, the second month in a row, all in an effort to curb inflation. That means borrowing costs will rise even further. And breaking to...
Well, good. I mean, people should try to not borrow money from the Federal Reserve.
In Washington, Senator Joe Manchin, he has made a sudden reversal. He went to Build Back Broke, says he will now support the Biden-backed Green New Deal socialist bill on climate, along with more reckless spending on, quote, renewables, and a 15% tax on corporations, which, by the way, corporations don't pay taxes, Joe. That gets passed on to we, the American people. Democrats are once again lying to you, trying to claim their socialist spending bonanza will reduce inflation. Let me be clear. It will do the opposite. It is one big Democratic tax hike.
Now, Joe Manchin III, I researched and found that he and his family are in the coal brokerage market. Coal. So when somebody who is in coal says, hey, I support President Biden's new Green Deal, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like thank you for your sacrifice. If whatever may be motivating this, I don't know, you know. But then Hannity, of course, just immediately calls it a sham. Democrats are pulling, and then now this guy is turning his back on the West Virginian people. Just constant no hugs or anything, you know. Like, this is where I just feel like these Fox guys need to look at the second, you know, amendment as like not a right to bear like but a right to bear arms and be like, do you want a hug? Like, come, Sean, come give me a hug, man. Because I don't know, like, you guys on Fox just need a big hug from, I guess, Democrats, which, again, if you look up definitions, if we're going to talk about a definition of recession, look up the definition of a Democrat. It's definition 1, somebody who is an advocate of democracy. You know, if you look up the definition for Republican, there's no word democracy in any of that. It's all Republican, power to the leaders of the people. Like, it's dangerous wording. And then if you look up the definition for politician, you'll see that the first is somebody involved in politics, but then the second one has gotten so bad that the definition, the Oxford Merriam-Webster definition of politician, is also somebody who is manipulative. And just look it up. If you look up it's just the fact that there is that second definition should worry politicians and think like, hey, that's not what I got into politics for. But kids who read the dictionary now, anybody who stays on top of like words that change, you know, like, hey, did you know that gay doesn't mean just somebody who's just like out there and whatever? Like, it's literally like somebody who is, you know, gay, homosexual. So don't call them like what we would use the word fag, and please forgive that, it's an outdated term, but that was like the thing where it's just like I cut that out. Like, I was like, oh my god, I don't want to offend anybody like that. I was just using that as just a blanket term for just like, yeah, you're not my type of, like, you know, who I run with. And when it came to a situation where I ended up calling somebody who I consider, he was a friend, he was somebody I worked with, and it wasn't him who told me, it was our manager, but she was just like, you know, he's gay, right? And I was like, no, just because I call him that doesn't mean you should think that that's what I'm saying. She was like, no, he's like really gay, so you should really think about stop using that term. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. I confronted him and I was like, are you gay? And he was just like, yes. And I was just like, what? Like, I'm so sorry. Like, why didn't you tell me? And he literally told me, I thought you knew. Like, I thought you knew, and that's why you were calling me that. And I was just like, no, I'm so sorry. Like, I just meant, like, you're just being, like, weird. Which, again, like, I was like speaking it, and I was like, hearing myself, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna self-correct. And I was like, I'm so sorry, and just give me a hug. And it was cool. But then he opened up to a level that I just was like, maybe we should keep a social distance here, because he was just like, the best thing about being gay and no one knowing is that you can have your boyfriend sleep over and your parents don't know. Like, and I was just like, what? Not to scare anybody, but it's just like, I love sleepovers, so it's just like I could have done without hearing that. Like, so these are just personal stories, but 15%, like, Dems plan to fight inflation. Let's see.
Coming at a time when married couples already, because of Biden inflation, are paying $6,800 more per year. Individuals are paying $3,400 a year. The average American driving to work is paying an estimated $2,000 more per year just on gasoline. This reckless spending plan reportedly included that 15% corporate minimum tax, over $100 billion for more IRS tax enforcement. In other words, you'll all get the Hannity treatment. I already get that treatment. And for nearly $400 billion for what they're calling energy security and climate change, which is code for climate change cult alarmism. And Senator Joe Manchin, who at first held out, stood for the people of West Virginia. He just whacked his own state with a massive tax increase and a full frontal assault on the energy sector that is at the heart of West Virginia's economy. Here with reaction is Making Money host, Fox Business Network. Charles Payne is with us. Charles, all right, so we're going to get GDP numbers. They want to change the definition of recession. But now we're seeing something happen, and it's happened faster than I thought it would. New home construction, because interest rates will be higher, that will come to a screeching halt. Right. Sale of pre-existing homes, that will drop. Nobody's going to want to give up a 2.5%, 3%, 3.75%, 30-year fixed rate. That's going to stop. Home values will now plummet. So that now is going to really put the economy in the tank. Am I wrong on any of that?
You're not only are you right, but I think the most important point is how fast this is going to happen. People are going to wake up and like, whoa, what happened? Give you an example. You mentioned the new home sales. The average price of a new home in April was $569,000. Last month, it was $456,000. In 2 months, it lost $100,000 in value. Think about that for a moment. What if you bought a new house 2 months ago and you're already $100,000 in the hole? It's just almost every single day, Sean, I'm looking at this data, and it's not just that these data points are missing Wall Street consensus and coming down at these big time moves, but the lightning speed at what this is striking is frightening. It's really frightening, and still, it's going to get a whole lot worse.
All right, so if, for example, you buy a $500,000 home, if you had it at 3% mortgage, now you get, what, 6, 7%, whatever it's going to rise to, with the 75 basis point increase again this month, like last month. So now over the course of your loan, you're going to pay, what, another $200,000 to $300,000 in interest payments? What percentage of the population is going to be pushed out of the home buying market?
Well, you know what? And the sad part is a large part is already pushed out, right? There are no starter homes, and there's no, all the houses have been being bought by Wall Street more recently, by foreign buyers, by second buyers, by cash buyers. This makes it prohibitive. You talk about the American dream. It has gone completely kaput. It is absolutely nuts. In the meantime, what's going through the roof even faster than all of this? Rents. People are going to be, that's one of the things driving the consumer price index. Rents are on a rise like crazy, and there's nothing out there stopping them. You heard Jay Powell today saying he's going to try his best to break the back of this economy because he thinks that's the only thing that can break this fever.
And let me ask you, Charles Payne, you're a lot smarter on the economy than I am. I contend that corporations don't pay taxes because when their tax bill goes up, they pass it right on to we the people, the consumer. Am I right, or is Joe Manchin right?
They pass on as much as they can pass on, and if they can't pass it on, they start firing people. And if that's not enough, they stop research and development. If that's not enough, listen, these are for-profit businesses. And by the way, they're used to ups and downs. They know that the cycle changes. If they have to go into some sort of a foxhole and wait out a couple of years until a more business-friendly administration gets in, they'll do that. But the average person is going to pay the price once again. Our country will pay a heavy price.
The poor, the middle class, people on fixed income, they're getting clobbered now, and it's going to get worse. Sad. And by the way, all preventable. And a lot of it is because of the energy policies. It's okay. We can import energy from Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, and OPEC, but we won't produce it domestically where we can do it faster, cheaper, and cleaner. How does that make sense? It's insane. Charles Payne, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else. This was going to happen.